Come on then, right.
Play Sonic Adventure together on Dreamcast. Up to 6 billion players.
Greetings YouTube, Sega Zombie here and welcome to the Sega Wall Dreamcast Full PAL set Part 3. Whoa, what a mouthful, hey? Should have thought about that title. We're getting there, guys. We've got some more juicy titles to go through on the Dreamcast. Some amazing games to look at. But I just wanted to share a few more memories with you guys before we get started into some of the games that I haven't highlighted in the other videos, and something that's a really significant factor of the Dreamcast and what was vital to me when I moved into my own place was that I had lost my PC. Now, my dad bought a PC when I lived at home with my parents, and because they were expensive, the late 90s all the way through to the early 2000s, PCs were a really expensive piece of kit. I can remember my dad paying around about £2,000 for his setup, and there was no way me moving into my own place could afford that. And this is where the Dreamcast step in, because back then phones were still in their infancy. Even though you could kind of go online, it didn't really work. And this is what I want to talk about: surfing the web on the Dreamcast.
For the first time in console history, Dreamcast incorporates modem technology. With free unlimited internet access thrown in, Dreamcast lets you surf the internet and send emails anywhere in the world from your TV at the cost of a local call.
This was a first for me, and I can remember it being a first for many things. I signed up to eBay through my Dreamcast. I sold my first item on eBay through my Dreamcast. And it was a really important thing. It was great to be able to hook my Dreamcast up to my normal TV in my living room and just browse the web. It was brilliant. It was an amazing thing, and I think it's sort of like forgotten about how important that was back then, because it was the first console to do it. And this is where Sega was so ahead of the game. They really did want to bring what we take for granted now, back then, all those years ago, nearly 20 years ago, into our bedrooms, into our homes. And that is a real significance with the Dreamcast, and I just wanted to highlight that. And also sort of like around 2000, 2001, my football team, Ipswich Town, were flying high in the Premiership, and we finished 5th in the Premiership. We just missed out on the UEFA Cup, the Champions League, sorry. We just missed out on that by a whisker, and we was gutted, but we made the UEFA Cup, and it was just real happy memories. And any of you guys that follow football know that Ipswich Town are in a sorry state, so I've got loads of memories there, being in my early 20s, going to support Ipswich Town and then flying really high. And that's another relevant fact, is that for a year or two in my life, I became a gooner. I became an Arsenal fan just for their kit and strip, and I'll put in some pictures now. Of Arsenal, because they had Sega and they had Dreamcast on their football kit, which back then was a big deal. You know, they were the first games company really to break it into sport like that, in the UK anyway. And it was an amazing thing, and it cost Sega an awful lot of money. The gamble didn't really again pay off for them, but it's just a memory I wanted to share with you guys. And I can remember that summer we lost Richard Wright to Arsenal, and he was an Ipswich Town goalkeeper, and yeah, he ended up playing for Arsenal and wearing the Dreamcast kit. So I thought I'd just share that with you before we get stuck in. So let's get stuck into some more fantastic games. And where better to start with the first game of this video, and it's the game that absolutely got me so excited about the Dreamcast. What you've got to remember is, us Sega fans, we waited a long time. We waited for pretty much throughout the whole life cycle of the Sega Saturn. And you know what character mascot I'm talking about, and that's Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, he didn't really appear in his own game, or a true sequel, or you know, a true Sonic game just didn't appear on the Sega Saturn. Yeah, we had Sonic Jam, Sonic R, the racing one, and there was Sonic 3D, but there wasn't a true Sonic team. We wanted a 3D Sonic. The Nintendo 64 got Mario 64, and that's what we wanted. And when the trailers and the adverts all went up that there was a Sonic adventure coming out on the Dreamcast, this got us mega excited. And the first game up is Sonic Adventure, and wow, this game really didn't disappoint. This was the game for the year of the Dreamcast's life that you could put onto your mates that didn't have a Dreamcast, and they would be blown away by the visuals of this game. It looked stunning. This really was a sexy release on the Dreamcast and a great game. And then we'll follow that up with Sonic Adventure 2. Again, I really enjoyed this game. Some people criticise it for some of the characters involved. There's lots of different characters you can play as. You can play as the light team, the dark team, and where you take on some of the enemies or the evil characters in the Sonic universe. But I thought this really worked well. I really enjoyed the robot missions and some of the Tails missions, which I thought helped break up some of the Sonic gameplay, and a fantastic game. I absolutely adored some of the levels on this, and they're really iconic today, especially the city escape with the soundtrack and escaping through the city and being chased by that truck. Absolutely fantastic memories there, and I can remember us all being absolutely amazed by this game, and they were two solid releases on the Dreamcast. Next up, we have a Capcom release. Capcom really did support the Dreamcast, and that's Spawn in the Demon's Hands. A game that I've not played too much. I can remember being really annoyed with this game when it first came out. It was the controls. The controls just weren't responsive enough and very fiddly. It let this game down, but visually it was a good game, and I know a few of my mates really enjoyed Spawn. Next up, we've got Macken X. This is a very bizarre game on the Dreamcast. Definitely worth checking out. It's very unique, a very unique style game. It's an Atlas release, so you know it's going to be quality, but this one is really worth checking out, guys. It's something a bit different. Then we've got an absolutely amazing arcade game here, and that's 18 Wheeler American Pro Trucker. An absolutely fantastic Sega game this. I really enjoyed this on the Dreamcast, and it was pretty much arcade perfect. A fantastic game, and if you're like me and you love your races, then this is just a different take, you know. Who doesn't want to drive one of them big huge juggernaut trucks in a race across states of America? It's absolutely fantastic and well worth checking out, guys. Next up, we've got European Super League, another footy game. Then we've got the spiritual sort of successor to Hydro Thunder, another midway arcade racer, and that is Four Wheel Thunder. Now, I can remember being really excited. As I said in the previous video, me and my mates absolutely loved Hydro Thunder, an awesome game, and this is more of the same really, guys, but with big huge 4x4 monster trucks. What's not to like about that? An absolutely fantastic racer, and definitely worth checking out on the Dreamcast. And again, you will pick this up for just a few pounds. Well worth putting in the collection, guys. We've got Coaster Works. These were popular in the noughties due to the hype of theme park and theme park world. These roller coaster simulator games were extremely popular, and there had to be one really on the Dreamcast, and it's a solid game. I know my nephew, he absolutely loved these games when he was growing up, and he was well into all his coaster games and all the roller coaster simulators and theme parks. He adored them, and I know he really liked this on the Dreamcast. There was a sequel, but it was only released in Japan. A game that needs no introduction, this, and that's Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now, the Sega Saturn port of this that was released in Japan only is absolutely fantastic. Some say it's better than the Dreamcast port. I've not got the Saturn port, so I can't really give my opinion, but this still plays absolutely fantastic. And the Dreamcast does 2D fighters better than any other console at the time. This really was a great game. Many hours did we play Street Fighter games. 2D fighters really popular in my house. All my mates would come round before we went out or hit the town or went down the pub. We always had a few rounds of Street Fighter, and you know, that would decide who you would talk to for the rest of the night, if you won or lost. Yeah, there was many a fallout over these games. And that leads us on to another Street Fighter game, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Again, another solid Street Fighter game. Perhaps this is when Capcom were churning out a bit too much Street Fighter, so we all ended up getting a bit of a rest from it in the end. But a fantastic game, guys. Absolutely loved this one too at the times, and it was good to be able to mix it up. All the Street Fighters, we knew how to play them, me and my mates. We all loved them. We've been playing, all of us have been playing Street Fighter for years by that point. And just to mix it up in different gameplay styles, different modes, all the different combos and everything that you could learn. I liked the little tweaks they made between each one, different little moves that your favourite characters would gain or lose, and that really added to the game. I love the Street Fighter series. And this game really is a special one. I've done a Forgotten Classics on this, and that is Dynamite Cop. Fantastic two-player co-op game in the vein of Streets of Rage. It had the original on the Sega Saturn, Die Hard Arcade. Sega didn't have the license for it, unfortunately, for this, so it stuck to Dynamite Cop, and it's also known as Dynamite Decker 2 in Japan. But a fantastic game. It's so wacky, really cool visuals, so many different weapons. It's just so over the top. Adrenaline rush of a game, really fun. It can be completed in 20 minutes, but it's a blast, and me and my mates would always put this game on to warm us up for a nice gaming session, and that was what it was all about. An absolutely classic game, and it's a must in your Dreamcast collection, guys. A game in a similar vein, and this is sort of like a sister game, a spin-off game to House of the Dead, and that's Zombie Revenge. 3D side-scrolling beater in the vein of Dynamite Decker. This one's got more fiddly controls though, and it's bloody hard, whereas Dynamite Cop is really playable and pick up and play game. This game frustrates. It gets really tough, and it's not an easy one to get through. Persevere with it though. It's a great game, and if you're a massive fan of the House of the Dead like I am, then this is great because you go through the original mansion and it touches on loads of elements of the House of the Dead series. So really worth putting that in your collection if you can get hold of it, guys. And then we go on to another light gun game. There weren't many released on the Dreamcast because of its short life, but it did get some fantastic ones. And Confidential Missions, a great game. If you like James Bond, I love James Bond, so I really couldn't wait for this game to come out, and it didn't disappoint. It's utterly cheese, which just makes the game so playable, and it's got some really original ideas, really stereotypical Bond villains and scenarios, and it's a really great light gun game, and it's cheap. This one won't set you back a fortune, and it's worth putting in the wall. Next up, we've got Mortal Kombat Gold. Go out and buy pretty much a lot of the Mortal Kombats on later systems, but I never truly got into them as much as I did Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. But that's Mortal Kombat Gold on the Dreamcast. Then we've got another launch title here, and that's Trick Style. I can remember us playing this game a lot, you know, at the time. Really popular games, especially on the PlayStation, was snowboarding, skateboarding, all of these type of games. And this sort of like is a futuristic hoverboarding game that mixes the two genres together. It's a racer, and it was a solid game, and it looked really good on launch. So a good game, that Trick Style, and you will pick this up for just a couple of pounds. It really is a cheap one, guys. Then we've got Time Stalkers, an RPG action adventure style game. Then we've got the first Marvel vs. Capcom game, which is pretty much arcade perfect and a great addition to the 2D fighters available on the Dreamcast. Then we're coming into the Grand Theft Auto games. We've got Grand Theft Auto 2, which I absolutely loved the top-down Grand Theft Autos. I remember playing the original Grand Theft Auto on my dad's PC and being absolutely hooked on it. I had played this game so much, and when the sequel came out on the Dreamcast, I was mega excited, and it didn't disappoint. It really upped the tempo and upped everything what was in the original, and was a really solid and great game, and really worth putting into your Dreamcast collection, that one, guys. We've got another sealed one here, and that is Conflict Zone. I've never played this. But then we've got UEFA Striker, another football game. Star Lancer, which looks like an on-rails sort of space shooter, where, you know, the fair where you're in your cockpit and you're flying around shooting. A game I've not really played. It's one I'm gonna get into though, this one. I've got quite a few games that I've still not played on the Dreamcast. I find that I go back to the same 50 or so, but there's a few that I keep promising myself that I'm gonna go through and play, and that's Star Lancers on that list. Definitely gonna play that in the future. Then we've got Vanishing Point, another racer, and as you're seeing, a regular theme here, guys, with the Dreamcast collection is there's loads of arcade races. And I'm not complaining. I absolutely love arcade races. I think it's a genre that's highly missing in today's gaming world. We really miss the arcade races. I know I do. Yeah, it's a genre that's real suffered in recent years, and unfortunately Vanishing Point isn't a great example. And again, there's so many great ones on the Dreamcast that this one sort of like went by the wayside. But you'll pick this up for a couple of pounds. And then what console didn't have a variation of Bust a Move? This is Bust a Move 4. Great addictive games. I can remember my mum used to hound us all. We'd come back from wherever we'd been in town or at school or whatever. When she had the original PlayStation, it was either mine or my brother's. We gave it to my mum because she absolutely loved Bust a Move. And it was like she was sitting there waiting for someone to come home so she could get us in the living room playing two-player Bust a Move against each other. And she was competitive. So fond memories of the Bust a Move games, because my mum isn't really a gamer, but these were games that she absolutely loved. Bust a Move, great. We've got another footy one. And this is 90 minutes. I've just noticed, guys, that this one's got its spine torn out, so that's going to have to be a replacement, that one, at some point. Then we've got the stunning Echo the Dolphin. Again, absolutely stunning, just like its Mega Drive originals. It blew people away. People didn't necessarily really play the games and enjoy them and play them all the way through, but it was just the whole uniqueness about the games, and they visually were really pleasing and just a chill out game. And it was no different on the Dreamcast. Again, this isn't gonna hit your wallet too hard, and it's really worth putting into collection. It really is a visually stunning looking game and worthy in your Dreamcast collection, guys. This next game we've been playing a lot on recent gaming nights. I'd never actually played this game until just a few weeks ago. It was suggested by Ian Stewart on a retro game night, and do you know what? We played this game for hours. Gauntlet Legends, absolutely fantastic. Once you get past the slowdown, because it is quite a hectic game, as you know what Gauntlet is, and because of the 3D, it does suffer with some frame rate drops and things like that. But once you get into it, guys, you completely forget it, and the game is so addictive. It's just, you want to play it again. It is kind of frustration. The only negative about it is sometimes you don't really know what you're doing. Some of the secrets you have to find, it can be a bit of a mission trying to locate like a a secret wall or something like that that has something for you to progress further in the game. But apart from that, we had a right blast on this. An absolute must, I say, for the Dreamcast collection. And then next up, we've got F1 World Grand Prix 2. Again, there used to be loads of Formula 1 games on consoles back in the day, and it's no different on the Dreamcast. A solid game. Then we've got Slave Zero. Now, I was never a fan of this game. Just wasn't my thing. I know it was being hyped at the time before it was released, but it was very disappointing. Visually, nothing special. Gameplay, not great. Yeah, just a below average game, this on the Dreamcast. And yeah, was quickly forgotten, to be quite honest. And you couldn't be any more opposite here. Soul Reaver, Legacy of Kain. What a game. I can remember me and all my mates in my living room, and we played this game until the end. I can remember we got so far in it, and my mates were on the phone to me the very next day, eager to come round so we could finish this game, and we kept at this game until it was done. This game really was visually very good on the Dreamcast, and it had a really great mechanic where you could go from sort of like the underworld to real world. So it had the different dimensions there, and you had to utilise both universes to get through certain stages. And God, this really was one of the first sort of adventure games that really captured me on the Dreamcast. An absolutely fantastic game, this, and really worth picking up. Then we've got Virtual Striker 2. I absolutely loved this game in the arcades. Absolutely fantastic game. Very unforgiving game. It doesn't really play like football, if I'm being honest, but it's great and it's so addictive. It makes a great two-player game, and just playing the computer is rock hard. It really is. You think you're going to win, and in the last few seconds they'll get that goal, that winning goal. So frustrating, but a great game. Another fantastic adventure platformer, and that's Rayman 2. I never really got into Rayman the original. I did have it originally on the Atari Jaguar, and then I had it later on the Sega Saturn. But I never really got into it. It was a game that I enjoyed it for the first few levels, and then I lost interest in it. But Rayman 2, I think, is one of the best ones, and I really enjoyed this game. Great 3D environments again, and just, yeah, a really good story. I kept captivated to it, and I played it until the end. A great game. Then we've got Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing. One of my best friends back in the day. He loved his motorbikes. He was well into his motorbikes, and I can remember him buying every single motorbike game that come out. This was one of them, and I can remember us really enjoying this game. I'm not really one for motorbike games. I think one of my favourites is obviously Super Hang-On was great, and I really enjoyed Manx TT on the Sega Saturn. And I'd say out of all the motorbike games, Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing was my favourite on the Dreamcast. Next up, we've got another Capcom game, and that's Giga Winged, an absolutely fantastic vertical shooter. Absolutely brilliant. It's when we're starting to delve into the bullet hell style games, which you've got to be in the right mood for these type of shooters, but this is great. It's not absolutely rock hard. Persevere with it, learn the patterns and the enemy layout, and you'll be fine. This is actually a really solid game and really worthy in your entry. If you love shooters, this is a must on the Dreamcast. Then we've got another 3D fighter series here, Dead or Alive 2. I can remember all the controversy of the bouncing boobies in the Sega Saturn version. It's no different to the Dreamcast one, and this has a lot of fans. A lot of people really love the Dead or Alive games. I'm more of a virtual fighter guy, to be quite honest, and Soul Calibur, but this was a solid game, and me and my mates, we did play this one, mostly for laughs, but it was a great game on the Dreamcast. Then we've got Sydney 2000. The last great game like this that I played was Athlete Kings on the Sega Saturn. Me and my mates absolutely loved that game. So competitive, absolute banter all the way with that game. But future athletics games, they lost it for me. They become too complex, I believe, too much to the controls. But you know, we played this one a little when it come out, and you know, it's okay. It's okay, an average game. Next up, we've got Surf Rocket Racers. This was one of the last games, again, that I needed in the final 20 to complete the set. Then we got Skies of Arcadia, which is a fantastic game and was a Dreamcast exclusive until a couple of years later it was released on the Nintendo GameCube. An absolutely fantastic action adventure game this. I love the airships in the sky, the whole environments, the whole art style, and the world setting for this game is fantastic. And it's one of the few RPGs that I've played all the way through. These are live action adventure games, and this is a great one. A really, really must have in your Dreamcast collection. Then we've got Spec Ops 2 Amiga Squad, NFL Blitz 2000. Again, one of the last games I needed. I'm not into American football games, so I deliberately just didn't buy them, you know. I've got them finally to complete the set. Then we're going to go on to one of my favourite Dreamcast games, and this game just blew everyone away, and that is MSR. If you're into your racers like me and all my mates were at the time, MSR, Metropolis Street Racer by Bizarre Creations, was the game that we was all waiting for. After the Dreamcast launched, this was being shown off in the magazines, and I think there was a demo rolling constantly in EB when I was working there, showing future games that was coming out, and every time that trailer looped to MSR, I'd be behind the counter and I'd look up at it just in awe, just waiting for this game to come out. And do you know what, guys, it really didn't disappoint. Bizarre Creations brought some really unique ideas to the racer to freshen it up, and it worked. They had a whole kudos system where you would score points for drifting, near misses, overtaking, slipstream, you name it. The kudos system was amazing. The game branched out awesomely, and the game won loads of awards for the creations of its tracks and its realistic interpretations of some of the cities that you raced in. This really was a fantastic game, and this is a must own. And again, you can pick this game up for just a few pounds. Me and my mates played this game for weeks. So much replayability value there. We even used to be competitive in ghost races, trying to get the fastest lap. I can remember this was one of the one games that not one of us was happy to own, and all of us owned this game. Every one of my mates that had a Dreamcast, they all went out and bought MSR just for the sheer competitiveness for it, the banter rights, all of that, all rolled in one, and the memories come flooding back with this game. This truly was one of my favourite racers of all time. An absolutely fantastic console game this, and it's a must in your Dreamcast collection. I really can't emphasise that enough. And then next up we've got Unreal Tournament. Again, by this time I was starting to get a little tired of first person shooters and these arena based multiplayer games. I don't know, it was just me. They were ever so popular for many years, but this was just another one to me. And I know quite a few people that absolutely loved it. And these were popular games, these arena games. I'm not taking anything away from that, but they just weren't my cup of tea in the end. I got bored of them. Then we've got Urban Chaos, another great sort of action game, this one. It's a third person sort of perspective game. A really great game actually. Again, another game that we played all the way through until the end. I bought it when it first came out. And yeah, it's a really solid game and really enjoyable. So worth checking out, guys. Then we've got Star Wars Demolition, which is very similar to Vigilante 8 Second Offense, but in the Star Wars universe. So what's not to like there, guys? Again, a fantastic Star Wars game. I believe this was a multi-platform release in the end. But what's happened to Star Wars, hey? I'm not talking about the films, I'm talking about the games. You know, since EA have taken over the Star Wars license, it's just gone so flat. You know, back then we had so many Star Wars games. There was always a Star Wars game that someone liked. And, you know, this was a solid game on the Dreamcast. Then we've got the sequel to Phantasy Star Online. We've got Phantasy Star Online 2, which is more NBA 2K2. This is a tough one to get, this one. Yeah, it took me a while to get this one, and believe it or not, when I got it, I ended up with 2. I think I won one on eBay, and then someone on the groups, I think it was Pete actually, Pete Armour, I bought this off him, and then at the same time I won it on eBay, so I ended up with 2 copies, but I managed to get rid of the dupe very easy, because this is a tough basketball game to get on the Dreamcast. Then we've got MDK 2, Murder Death Kill 2, again a BioWare Corp game, and this was an exclusive originally to the Dreamcast. There was mass hype over this game, the critics adored it, the magazines loved it, this game was hyped to the max. I did enjoy it. Did I jump on the hype train? Not really. Then we got Ducati World, again my motorbike mad mate, my biker mate, went out and bought this game on release, and yeah, it's okay. I think I preferred Suzuki All-Stars over that though. And this was a game that I had to upgrade recently because the front cover, and that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a great 2D fighter. This quite unique, it's quite in depth and really worth checking out, this one, guys. And if you can grab it for a good price, worth putting in the collection. And then we've got the absolutely mesmerizing Res. What a psychedelic LSD inspired game this is. Absolutely madness, this game. And yeah, I loved it. When you had a stressful day at work, or you had an argument, or you couldn't pay the bills, I used to put this on and forget about life, forget about all of that. This was a game that I used to sit and play for hours. A great sort of vector-inspired game. Yeah, real trippy, real psychedelic. Worth checking out, guys. It's a pricey one though. I wouldn't say it's rare on the Dreamcast, but it's desirable, so it holds a price. Got NBA 2K. A solid little basketball game by Sega Sports on the Dreamcast. We've got Wetrix, which is a puzzler, a water-inspired puzzler on the Dreamcast, this one. I do believe this did surface on the N64. I might be wrong there, but I'm sure it was a multi-format game. And yeah, it's okay. As puzzlers go, it's pretty much an average one, really. And then finally in this batch, we've got Extreme Sports. Now, this critically didn't do very well, and yeah, it got sort of like in the 60s, possibly 70s in the magazines for the time, but I still took a punt on this because of its multiplayer aspect. Playing it with your mates before you was going out, or playing it after a bit of a session, it was a great game, and we really enjoyed it. It was something different, being able to do hang gliding, BMX biking, quad bikes, snowboarding, all mixed into one big event, like a triathlon type style game. Yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed this, and I know my mates did too. Well worth putting in the collection, and you'll pick it up really cheap. Phew! There were some absolute bloody belters there, weren't there, guys? Some fantastic games on the Dreamcast. Oh, I miss Sega so much, I really do. And yeah, doing these videos has really brought that through, and so many more memories coming into my mind. And yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad you guys have joined me on this nostalgia journey. But we don't end there. There's going to be one more episode, guys. I promise you, only one more. And then we're going to be done. But until then, I'm Sega Zombie. Goodbye.